All right, we're ready to move our way up the pyramid. We're going to go from trust up to conflict. And now that we've established trust within our team, we can really get to having some good conversations and really getting to where we feel like is good, meaningful answers that could be based on a variety of opinions from the whole group. So we're going to talk about everybody being able to speak their truth, the best answer wins, not individuals, and creating conflict norms, all right? So everybody speaking their truth. John, what does that mean to you?
Well, I think what it means to me is that everyone has to feel valued. And I think this kind of goes back to the idea of building strong and sincere relationships. But then it also goes, I think, as a manager or as a coach to, if everybody feels that they're being treated the same and you're consistently treating all your athletes the same, then they know that their voice is going to matter. And I think to kind of take it the next step, though, also means you have to seek out their voices, because normally in a group there's going to be a couple of dominant voices. In football, maybe it's the best players. But one of the things that happened a couple years ago is our team was coming off a great season. We had lost our first 3 games. We were a very challenging schedule, and so we met on a Saturday morning and to go over our game film, and I just started saying, what do you think? How can we turn this around? And I called, hey Jimmy, the backup, defensive lineman, what do you think? And then I called on our starting quarterback. But I think if they feel valued by the way you coach them and manage them, and then if you solicit or elicit, whatever you want to call it, their opinion amongst the group, I think it will empower them to speak what's on their mind. And I think that can be very helpful. And in our case of our team, we went from losing 3 in a row to winning 6 in a row. And I think a lot of it I trace back to the power of that particular meeting that we had.
Yeah, so we use the word conflict because we really want to get to where people have the level of trust within their group where they can speak with knowing that there is going to be some conversation from somebody else that isn't going to agree. And when you can get to where people can disagree comfortably, then you're working your way into conflict. And that's what we're talking about here, is being able to speak your mind no matter what. If it disagrees with the biggest, loudest voice or the boss, you can still speak your mind. And for me, John, very similar is in meetings that I had a high-performing group of general managers, and there was always 2 that would speak up very quickly and had their opinions, and it was the couple that were quieter that, and what we call in the 5 dysfunctions, we call it mining for conflict, and just exactly what you said. It's about, hey Heather, tell me what your opinion is because I know you're thinking something.
Right.
And pulling that out of her, and that's what we've got to do as leaders, right? Exactly what you said. We've got to make the quiet people feel comfortable and create an environment where they can speak their truth without worrying if someone's going to criticize them or downgrade them or anything
For
like
sure.
that. Yeah.
And I also think part of this having that, creating the comfort level is you as the manager or the head coach being willing to hear what they have to say.
Right.
And I think that's a big, and some could be an uncomfortable step. But I mean, I know, like, for example, at halftime of football games, I would always go to the offensive line and I'd sit them together and I'd say, what do you guys want to run? Like, what do you guys want to run? You're out there, you're blocking your guy, and I would get instant like this or that. I'd ask them all, and they would know that we're not going to run all of it, but we kind of come to a consensus in a brief period of time. But that once we left the locker room, we were all on the same page, and a lot of the adjusting was generated through them. And I think that's a thing that can be, and frankly, as a coach, if I ever went to the halftime and said, what do you guys want to run? And they were all like frozen. That's the worst scenario for me. I want them letting me know what they think, because I think it can really help you problem solve.
Yeah, perfect analogy is frontline employees, right? And people, managers that are on the front line and the people that are closest to your customer, and doing the same thing, right? Asking them what they're hearing, what are their people saying, and bringing that back. But the manager being open to that and wanting to elicit that information. So we've got the best answer wins, and really that is about us focusing on the answer rather than the competition of who wins the battle, right? And so many times we go into conversations and we want to win and we want our position to carry the day. And what we want to really see is that people set that aside and really look for what the best answer is. And going back to trust is being able to say, oh, hey, John, that is a better solution than I came up with. Let's go with that. And people feeling comfortable be able to do that and not feel like I personally lost if my solution isn't chosen.
For sure, and I think that's part of, this trust building and this having them feel valued. Because if they feel like you value them, if there's 40 guys on my team and they all know that I care about them and I care about what they have to say, they'll also take comfort in, hey, if I thought we should run this play and coach went with that one, well, maybe next time it'll be my turn. And so I think having that confidence that you've created an environment that they know that it's created this idea of unselfishness and it's about us being successful, and we're gonna mine the ideas. We're gonna if we can't agree, we're gonna mine it, but that everyone's voice is gonna be heard. I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, nice. And then the last one is creating conflict norms. And for any team getting started on this, you have to have a starting point, right? You have to have an entry point where people can get, because you can't just start a meeting and say, hey, all right, today we're gonna conflict, right? You've got to have a progression. So being able to have conflict norms and just sort of basic rules that everybody agrees on and everybody understands, and it could be super simple, right? It could be we don't interrupt each other, we don't talk over each other, we listen to understand like we talked about before. So very simple is a great way to get started with creating an atmosphere where people can speak their mind, speak their truth, and you can get some good conflict going.
For sure, and I think you just kind of said it and alluded to it. You don't want to start with this like, hey guys, how are we gonna, you want to start when you're in a place of trust, and now you can kind of have a more productive conversation about working through problems. And I think that's a big deal. The other part is, like with me, it was always like a respect, right? You guys have all put in the same amount of work here. I respect all of you guys. You respect each other. So we're not going to have someone say, well, if the offensive line would block better, that would solve the problem. Like you have to really put guardrails on it, and you as the leader, have to, jump in as needed and make sure those guardrails are there. Because you're right, it can be. Without norms, I think without any rules behind it, it can get a little uncomfortable and counterproductive. But I think if the guardrails are there, and I never really set. It's sort of the overall theme of our program was respecting each other, or there was just an overall kind of foundational piece. But yeah, I think it's very important that it's not a free for all.
Yeah, and I think too, you've got to be conscious of gender differences of communication, cultural differences of communication. I mean, there's all kinds of different things that people bring to the room around conflict and being able to speak their opinion. So laying those things out for everybody so that they know, and being the leader to be willing to call people out on it is the most important thing, and bring them back.
Kind of redirecting for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So one of the things sometimes I'll hear from managers on a pre-conference, and you've probably heard this too, John, is that, oh, our team never fights. We get along. Everybody likes each other. And for me, that's a red flag, right? Because that means that people aren't speaking up, because nobody agrees on everything. There's going to be disagreement. So if you are a manager where you are not getting pushback from your staff, then I think you need to start examining a little bit about how you're representing yourself with your team, and are you creating the opportunity for people to give you feedback where they feel comfortable?
For sure, and I think every good organization, every good team is going to have moments where there's disagreement, where there's conflict, and I think, like you said, without that, I think something's not right. So I think that's a big one. But the other thing too, sometimes even the word itself, conflict, if we have quote unquote conflict, that doesn't mean like tomorrow when we show up at work that there's going to be, you have to create an environment where this is just part of what we do. Part of what we do is work through disagreements together. It doesn't mean that, I'm not going to send you a Christmas card or anything. It just means that, hey, we kind of came to an agreement, we've moved on, and now to the next day we're right back to where we were. And that's not easy, but I think that's where you want to get.
And I guess that's awesome, and I do think that really emphasizes point too, is that we're really focused on the answer. When we're committed to getting the best answer for the organization, not for ourselves, then we can do that. Then we can scrap it up, right? And then the better relationship we have, obviously. Right. When we've got that emotional bank account between us and we've invested each other like we talked about before, then it's easy. I mean, there's people that I could pretty much say anything to and we'd walk out and it would be no big deal.
Right.
Now, other people I didn't have that kind of rapport with and I had to be much more careful, but we got to read the room and understand who our people are.
Absolutely.
So, all right, well, great one. So wrapping up here, so everyone speak their truth. Best answer wins, and creating conflict norms will help you move your team up through the conflict continuum to be able to get better discussions and better answers for your organization.